Welcome to Strange Horizon, a brand new YouTube show that covers the latest stories and the news on the topics of UFOs, strange happenings on this planet, and the paranormal. In today's episode, I will be going over YouTube. I mean Yutu. No, not that Yutu. For God's sakes, I'm talking about the Chinese rover Yutu. Am I saying that right? Wait, I think it's technically the second rover to be sent to the moon, so it's Yutu-2? Okay. You know what would be a fun challenge? Try talking about Yutu-2 and its magical journey to the moon to some random person in the streets without explaining to them that you're talking about a rover and see how they react. I would guess it'd be something like, "Bro, are you okay?" So outside of the recent moon anomaly, we will be analyzing a video from a famous UFO YouTuber. If you haven't guessed it yet, yes, it's Secure Team. You know, I was thinking about the name Secure Team, and I realized it would be actually a great name for a GQ type Let's Learn How to Pick Up Ladies channel. Girls scare me, I'm so insecure. Fear not, Secure Team is here to help. Lastly, I wanted to review some interesting potential UFOs captured by NASA from the Apollo mission. Now, talking about NASA, I want to quickly share one of the coolest NASA photos I've ever seen. I just noticed this as I was perusing their archives this past week. You don't see it? How about now?
Smoke weed every day.
Yes. Puff that magic dragon. So getting back to the moon rover, so I realized that this story is a little outdated, almost 10 days to be exact, but I still wanted to talk about it nonetheless. The big question in everybody's mind is, what exactly is that anomalous cube-shaped object? Could it actually be an artifact of sorts, something that is artificial? The other big question is, why are people calling it a hut? Because frankly, the only hut that thing resembles is Pizza Hut. The rover has been traversing the moon for almost 3 years now, albeit very slowly. I will say it's good to see that the Chinese are finally exploring what America had explored half a century ago. I'm just kidding, of course. This is actually a good thing, granted how mysterious the moon still is. There's so much that remains to be discovered still. It's kind of amazing that to this day, scientists are still stumped by how exactly it was created. Some in the UFO community wonder if it's even natural at all. Now, another fun idea to tease is, could it have been placed there billions of years ago by some ancient ET civilization to help spawn life on Earth? I do find it strange that as far as we know, there's only one intelligent species in this solar system that just so happens to have one moon in its planet. And it just so happens that this moon looks from our terrestrial perspective to be the exact same size as the sun. The near identical sizes of the two celestial object not only creates an interesting light versus dark dichotomy, it allows for perfect solar eclipses that act like cosmic clocks to be possible on this planet. Now, the reason why I find it to be so interesting is clocks, by definition, are things that are engineered. Then you have to consider the sexagesimal system, this system with a base of 60 that we inherited from the Egyptians. We not only use it to help record and count time, we also use that system to separate and measure Earth geographically. So for some obscure unknown reason, humanity uses that base 60 system to record time in space. I should also mention that we also inherited the measurement of the mile from the Egyptians. This is very peculiar. You see, the radius of the moon is exactly 1,080 miles. If you multiply that by 4, you get 4,320. Now, remember that number, 432. You see, we split our days into two halves, 12 hours each, 12 being 1/5 of 60. So how many seconds are there in half a day, 12 hours? It's 43,200. And how many minutes are there in a 30-day month, 30 being half of 60? Well, it's the same number, 43,200 minutes. Now, this is where things start getting really spooky. What is the approximate radius of the sun? It's actually pretty close to 432,000 miles. And while we're on the topic of what we inherited from the Egyptians, if you measure the Great Pyramid of Giza as it used to be from the base to the tip of the capstone, the pyramidium, how many pyramids would you have to stack up to reach the exact polar radius of Earth, basically stacking up from the exact center of Earth until you hit the North Pole. Would you believe me if I told you it is exactly, and I mean exactly, 43,200? Now, I don't think these are random coincidences. As I implied before, I think it is possible somebody engineered all of the connections and later provided humanity with this intricate and beautifully connected knowledge. So, not to get you off topic, I wanted to quickly look at this cube-like anomaly on the moon to see if we can get any more details by enhancing this image. So what I did initially was alter the channel slightly to kind of cut off the blurry haziness that you can kind of see on the edges of the moon and the object. And then I enhanced it in Photoshop, and well, this is what I got. I also attempted to enhance it utilizing an enhancement website service that claims to use artificial intelligence for their enhancements. Well, take a look. Okay, so to be frank, I can't say that I'm getting anything dramatic out of these images that could give me a definitive clue as to what it is. I mean, is it strange? Yes. Is it perfectly cube? Well, it doesn't seem to be, but it's tough to tell. I mean, something else to consider is that the moon, for whatever reason, often has strange rectilinear features. Here's one example that I found from the NASA archives. Now, what is a funny coincidence is that when I first got this channel going 4 years ago, one of the first, and to this day, least viewed videos I created was when I posted what looked to be a machine-like cubical object in Mars. Well, take a look. Something else that I discovered on Mars was little rocks that seemed to resemble seashells. I mean, it's very strange. So strange, in fact, that I wasn't the only one who believed this object resembled a cone shell. Google's artificial intelligence also made that same connection. Take a look.
So there it is, guys. There is the conch that I was seeing earlier.
So in summation, I can't be certain if that square anomaly is artificial or not, but I will keep my fingers crossed and hope that time will tell. Unfortunately, when you consider how the Chinese handled the COVID-related information, if the finding happens to be an extraordinary one, sadly, I doubt if we're ever going to get to know the truth. Alright, I wanted to go over that secure team video and share with you some interesting NASA images I uncovered recently. So let's teleport our way to the analysis pod. Yeah, let's just get right to it. So I have this video from Secure Team. So here's the deal. I'm a little bit nervous that I'm gonna get a copyright strike, even though this is technically fair use, only because he's another UFO channel, and I'm not trying to diss Tyler or say that that's the type of guy he is, that he'd give a copyright strike. But I'm another UFO channel, so even though I don't have a lot of subscribers, it's still like a competitive type of thing. So who knows? I'm just gonna simply show the video with the audio off and kind of paraphrase what's happening here. Okay, so in the beginning he talks about the same thing that we talked about in our episode, which was the cube. And no, I was not inspired by him, if you're curious, just coincidence. The second one is the one that I'm kind of interested in. And apparently, as it says here, broadcasted yesterday in South Korea. So apparently there was some kind of UFO that was spotted near the airport. And to be honest, I have conflicting views of this video, and I'm going to explain why. So here it is. It's only a few frames. And to me, it was really interesting that this was coming from a parent's broadcast, though I would like to see more evidence that this was the case. If this is coming off, like, let's say, like a live broadcast, then yeah, that would be really interesting. But there's something that I noticed that was it didn't quite make sense in this video. In here, so they're doing the close-up, right? And here's what doesn't make sense. So I did a quick calculation of how fast this object might be moving, right? So if I assume that the object is jumping from frame to frame, let's say, 1, 2, there's like, I don't know, 5 trees in between. Let's say that's around 100 feet. Okay, I think that's even kind of conservative. It's probably more, but let's say that's 100 feet that's jumping. So if you go to a calculator, you can kind of calculate its speed, because we know that broadcasts in South Korea are broadcasted either 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second. But let's just, for the heck of it, assume that it was 30 frames per second. So basically what's happening here is this thing is jumping 1/30th of a second, 100 feet in 1/30th of a second. So what we need to do here is take 100 feet and multiply it by 30, because there are 30 frames, and then basically you get 3,000 feet per second. That's how fast this thing is going, okay? So how many feet is a mile? Well, a mile is 5,280 feet. So if we divide this by 5,280, we get the amount of miles it's going per second. So it's going 0.568 miles per second. But we need to calculate the miles per hour. So how many seconds are there in a minute? There is 60, so times 60 seconds. And then once again, we have to multiply again by 60 to get the miles per hour, because there's 60 minutes in an hour. So this thing was going 2,045 miles per hour. And this is conservative. If it was going 60 frames per second, just go ahead and double that number. But if it was going 2,045 miles per hour, that is faster than a speeding bullet, ladies and gentlemen. The average speeding bullet is something like 1,400 miles per hour. That thing is almost reaching Mach 3 type speeds. And so the question that I have is it possible to have something that is going faster than a speeding bullet still be sharp? Unless you're shooting with some incredible camera that shoots like 400,000 frames per second, you're not going to get a sharp image from a speeding bullet. It's going to pass a certain distance while the frame is being taken, so you're going to see this blur effect. Even if this was being shot like 1,000 frames per second, I really don't think it could be this sharp. Like I said, I have mixed feelings about this video. I really don't know. The fact that it's just kind of jumping and doesn't have any kind of blur effect at all. And look at this. It has this is not a blur effect. This is like a split effect. And I don't know if this is happening from Secure Team's editing or if this is actually from the broadcast itself, but it's not blurring. That's the most important part. So yeah, so my hunch is it's probably fake, man. Look, I love UFO footage. I just don't understand how something can go faster than a speeding bullet and be that sharp. It just, to me, doesn't make sense. You can see the airplane barely moves as this thing passes by. The airplane's like almost like still in the sky. So I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it is real, and it's just they have this incredible camera that shooting at ridiculous frame rates, or maybe there's some kind of optical property that I'm not aware of that is happening here. So I just want to share you that quick analysis. And yesterday, or actually it was a few days ago, I was perusing the NASA archives and I found some kind of interesting images. Now I was trying to be really careful not to give something that could be a potential photographic artifact. So this is what I got from the session. So this lander image was kind of interesting to me because there are these kind of circular objects. Now, it could be that this was some kind of photographic artifact, but watch what happens here. So this one is actually a line, almost like one of those cylindrical type of UFO shapes. And then we have one more up here. I also noticed a tiny, tiny one that was just like a little blue speck. But the reason why I mentioned this is because that speck does repeat itself. I'll show you real quick. So we go to the next image and look, the objects have moved. But what interested me is not only has the objects moved, and not only is it in a different direction on the camera lens, but look at this object now. It's like, whoa, that thing looks like one of those spherical UFOs. If you look to the left, you still have a well-defined cylindrical shape. Now, I'm not ruling out that maybe there's some kind of refraction thing that is happening here that I just, for some reason, can't see the window that they're at, but I don't know, it just didn't look like there were any refractions, and I just thought that was kind of interesting, just something that was worth sharing. And if you look below this cylindrical object, there is the little blue dot that I was talking about that repeated from the previous image. Okay, going to the next one. There is something that really got my attention. It was really weird. How can I preface this? Okay, so basically, what ended up happening is these guys are shooting the moon, they're shooting all this other stuff, and then out of nowhere, there's just this random image in the blackness of space. And I'm thinking, why would somebody just point a camera and shoot where there's nothing there? There's no moon, there's no sun, nothing, just this black space. But there is this one really, really weird object. Take a look. What? Bro, that is crazy. And then when I say bro, I'm also, talking to the ladies too. It's just the way I talk. But bro, look at this. That is crazy. And I was like, wait a second. Can this be some kind of like weird reflection? But then I realized that this object is not only emitting this extremely bright, very strange light that seems to be only one axis in terms of direction, but I also realized that this light is strong enough to apparently be creating a type of flare, like a solar flare type of thing on the camera lens. So if I can assume that this is coming from this light source, then man, this is a weird image. And it's also very strange that this is the only thing that the photographer decided to capture, whoever the astronaut was that was taking these pictures. That's weird. And lastly, I want to go over this one image. This is something I shared before, but I saw it again and I'm like, you know what? It might be worth showing the people why this image is so interesting. It's a little smoker guy over there. So what I would do, actually, I'm gonna crop this at the location of interest. It's hard to see, but if I zoom in, you can see that there's these weird little lights up there. And so yeah, I'm gonna go even closer. It's like crop all the way in so we can really increase the size of this thing. Okay, so now I'm gonna zoom in. And I'm like, okay, that looks kind of interesting, but check this out. If I go ahead and I duplicate the layer and then I mess around with the channels, the color channels, watch what happens here. So let's go ahead and put it black and whites, and instantly you see that there is a very pronounced triangular three-dimensional shape that's protruding out of this object. Let's see if we can clear that up a little bit better. Let's see, maybe I'll go back to the original one. If I just close this out just a little bit. So I'm going to take that layer and I'm just going to apply over as a color layer. Look at that. Look how pronounced that triangle suddenly becomes. And then if we just go ahead and increase the size, image size, it's gonna be huge upsize, but it's okay. Put a little bit more reduction of noise. Look at that, man. I don't know, that's pretty weird to me, if you ask me. There's other ways to mix this. Let's try hard light filter, and then I'm just gonna kind of duplicate this and put a screen filter. Yeah. So I just wanted to share you kind of like the process that I do in terms of analyzing some of these objects. And sometimes, you get something that just looks like 3 dots at first, but when you start going into the color channels, you realize that there's 3-dimensionality to the object. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is my analysis for today. Now back to the episode. All right, so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. But before you leave, I wanted to share with you some interesting remote viewing results. Now, this image was picked out from a previous episode, and though we didn't get a lot of submissions, there were some that I found to be, well, how can I say it? Borderline, I guess? Like maybe they were on track to get a hit but barely missed. So here's the image, and the viewer, JR, commented, "Clowns or corrupt Fed agents." I mean, that's pretty interesting because colorful paint is so strongly associated with clowns, and hands sticking out in this manner is associated with being handcuffed. Now, what I also found strange was the RV from Joseph Campanella, who said it looked like a blue fire. The shape T popped up. I don't know, first time meditating and getting spooky vibes. Well, blue is definitely prominent in this image, and there are waves of color in the kid's hands, so I guess I can see how a fire in a more distant way could be guessed at if viewing session was not perfectly clear. Then he mentions he got a spooky vibe, which was kind of strange to me because given that JR used the description of corrupt agents and clowns, which in its pairing and juxtaposition to one another has kind of a spooky and cynical vibe to it. Anyways, I want to congratulate JR and Joseph Campanella for having a close hit for remote viewing. Okay, so for the next remote viewing image, it's going to be embedded via title and a document with the code HX3368565. To participate, simply write RV and your guess, and may you one day be immortalized in our remote viewing wall of gifted viewers. Please do not forget to subscribe to the new channel, Strange Horizon. The next episode will be published on that particular channel. Thank you so much for sticking around till the end. This is Felipe speaking, signing out.